One of the worst feelings a man can experience is when he has worked hard to become a good man, but yet the women around him choose to date losers instead of him. It's enough to drive a man insane, so I'm going to go over all of the reasons why women choose to date losers and show you why the problem often isn't you, but them. The first reason women date losers is because they want a man who won't judge them for their shortcomings. For example, if a woman does drugs, she may date a drug addict so she won't be judged for doing drugs. If a woman is an alcoholic, she may date an alcoholic so she can get blackout drunk every weekend without being judged. If a woman has no goals in life, she may date a loser with no goals so she won't be judged for having no goals. Women will choose to date losers because if they date a loser, they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, without needing to worry about being judged for their incompetence and irrational behavior. They choose to date losers because they know that if they were to date a good man, he would judge them, in which them choosing to date a loser instead of a good man isn't because the loser is better than the good man, but precisely because the loser isn't better than the good man. Women choose losers over good men because good men would judge them, but a loser wouldn't. The second reason women date losers is so that they don't feel guilty when they don't do the things they know they should be doing. If a woman were to date a man who is always trying to better his life through educating himself, becoming fit, or pursuing his goals, and she is doing none of those things, she will feel guilty every time she is around him. If she were to date a man who is educated, ambitious, and fit, she will be reminded every second that she is with him that she is a lazy bum, and instead of choosing to better herself and get on his level, she would prefer to date a loser just like her, so she can continue being a worthless failure without feeling guilty. Women sometimes choose to date losers to escape the guilt of incompetence. The third reason women date losers is so that they can avoid the fact that they can better themselves and change their lives. You see, if a woman were to date a good man, every second she spends with him would prove that bettering yourself is possible, and this would disallow her from claiming that life is tough and that bettering yourself is impractical. Whereas if she were to date a loser, he would blindly agree with her that life is tough and that her failures are not her fault, in which dating a loser allows her to avoid facing the reality that not only is she a loser, but that her being a loser is her fault, and that she can choose to stop being a loser. Women date losers so they can avoid the fact that they can better themselves and change their lives. The fourth reason women date losers is because they think that a loser won't cheat on them. They assume that a loser has fewer dating options, and as such, the chances of him cheating on her will be lower. Now, this is often not even true, but they don't know that. In which women date losers not because they like them, but because other women don't like them, and they refuse to date good men, not because they don't like them, but because they do like them, but so do other women. The fifth reason women date losers is because they would rather date a loser than to be alone. Most women are absolutely terrified of the thought of being alone, and in order to not be alone, some of them will date whichever man happens to approach them first, even if he is a worthless loser, if that is what it will take to not be alone. In which, when a woman chooses to date a loser, she didn't choose to date him based on his value, but based on whoever happened to approach her first, in a desperate attempt to escape her crippling fear of loneliness. The sixth reason women date losers is because they often didn't know, at least at first, that the man was a loser. There are many women who date losers because they are deceived by them. The man will fake his confidence, lie about his income, lie about his career and ambitions, and lie about pretty much everything else, leading the woman to believe that he is an extraordinary man, when in reality, he's a worthless loser. Women will sometimes date a loser simply because they didn't know he was a loser, in which if a woman chooses a loser over a good man, it might be because the man pretended to be a good man, and she fell for it. But if she had known how worthless of a loser he was, she would have chosen not to date him. The seventh reason women date losers is often simply because some women have no standards. There are plenty of women who will date any man if they simply ask them on a date. They don't care if the man is ambitious, successful, or even good-looking. They will date any man who happens to ask them out because they simply have no standards. And of course, this is usually because they are deeply psychologically damaged or because they're a hippie who believes that everyone is special and deserves to be loved. Either way, they will date whichever man happens to ask them out first because they simply have no standards. So if a woman chooses a loser over a good man, don't think that it's because the woman thinks the loser is better than the good man, because that is a concept that she may not even recognize. Because the woman has no standards. There is no such thing as a superior or inferior man, in which perceptually, she didn't choose a loser over a good man. She simply chose one random man over another random man, in which her choosing to date a loser over a good man has nothing to do with the man's value, but everything to do with her ignorance. The 8th reason women date losers is because they don't want to have to compete for their man. Women recognize that there is very little competition for losers, and that if a man is a loser, that she won't have to worry about other women trying to compete for him. In which women sometimes choose to date a loser instead of a good man, not because she doesn't want a good man, but because she does want a good man. But so do other women, and they don't want to compete. The 9th reason women date losers is because they often don't know that the loser is a loser. There are a lot of women who simply don't know what a good man looks like. A lot of women grow up in bad areas and think that abusive men with no goals are normal, and that a good man is an unrealistic expectation and is something that you only see in movies, in which they date losers because they simply don't know that the loser is a loser and think he's just a normal guy. The 10th reason women date losers is because some recognize that they don't deserve a good man. There are some low-quality women who possess the self-awareness to recognize and accept that they are undeserving of a good man. They may recognize that a good man would never entertain the idea of dating them, so they choose to date losers because they recognize that they are undeserving of anything better. The 11th reason women date losers is because there is less pressure. If a woman were to date a high-value man, she would be under constant pressure so as to not lose the great man, and there are plenty of women who absolutely hate this pressure. This is why some women date losers, because they know that if they are dating a loser and he breaks up with her, she can easily find another man of the same value by the end of the day, in which there is no pressure. The 12th reason women date losers is because some of them are simply primitive monkeys who only care about looks. They will date losers because, to them, a man's value is determined solely by his looks, in which him being an incompetent moron simply doesn't matter to them. There are, of course, many more reasons why women date losers, but they all have one thing in common. There is something wrong with the woman, whether it's low self-esteem or low standards or sheer incompetence. It almost always comes back to something being wrong with her. The problem is her, not you. So assuming that you are a competent man and you are wondering why a woman chose a loser over you, it is not that there is something wrong with you. There is something wrong with her. Do not fall into the trap of thinking that you are worthless because some brainless idiot chose a loser over you. The problem is her, not you.